Now, this video is going to be somewhat of a hybrid type episode where I'll be going through a little bit, like probably 1/3 of the video, talking about like how to kind of approach or some tips on approaching learning programming and really learning almost anything in general. And then the kind of 2/3, the other 2/3 of the video will be me actually going through and learning a programming language from scratch that I've never written a line of code in. And I'm actually pretty excited to see how that turns out. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get started by just talking about some of the tips I have. So the number one kind of like tip slash just recommendation is do not get stuck in, or I'll actually start this way. Do tutorials. I recommend to look at a couple tutorials, maybe look at some documentation. And documentation are like, usually you find them on the website of the programming language itself. Like if I search up C++ documentation, it's basically a manual that helps you out with any little question you might have. And start by like either looking at a simple tutorial or taking a like kind of just a quick look through the documentation. And then my tip number two directly contradicts that in saying do not get stuck doing tutorial after tutorial or just looking at the documentation endlessly. Look at it as sort of a baseline, as a very, very quick idea of how to program, or a very, very quick idea of how to use a programming language or a programming framework, or learning anything. But then actually go out and try to solve problems of some sort. And this can be done in a variety of ways. And I guess this is our third tip: solve problems. Now, you can do this in a variety of ways. Like I said, you can either look at programming questions, like there are questions that say design something that does blank and does blank and does blank, and then your goal is to design that in the programming language that you're trying to learn. And then another idea is to just create an application that you're interested in. Imagine you're trying to learn Swift for iOS programming, for example, and you want to make an app. Make a very simple app. Do not follow a tutorial. Look up some help, maybe even reference a tutorial, like when you need help with a very specific thing. Documentation is great for that, and or tutorials. But ultimately, design something that is fully you. That is another great way. Again, it's just solving problems. Building something is solving a problem. It's solving a problem that you have. So yeah, solving problems, just doing just random questions on the internet, or even just doing challenges, which is kind of like the first one. If you want to, like, there's a couple websites, like I think the one is called the uh Oilers Challenge. I don't even remember. But there's also a Discord, like Tech with Tim has a Discord where there's weekly coding challenges that are released. And generally those are for Python, but there's many places where like you can get challenge questions and just do those. So yeah, those are the main tips, is just solve problems is kind of tip number three. And I guess that's mainly it. Tip number four, of course, would be start coding, which is sort of encompassing the other three, is just be coding. Don't like this is like an all-encompassing tip. If you are watching a video or a tutorial, code along with the tutorial at the very least. If you are reading through an online tutorial on text, do not copy and paste. Just write it out. You can copy. You can put the code on one side and put your editor on the other side, and you can literally straight type it. But do not Control C, Control V, at least as a beginner, because you're not going to get used to writing the code itself. And of course, as a beginner in any programming language, in any programming framework, you want as much kind of exposure to actually writing out the code as much as you can. And that will help reinforce your fundamentals of actually writing the code itself. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and take these kind of four tips, or at least a stripped down version of them, and we're going to record like 10 or 12 minutes of me learning a programming language that I've never written a line in, called Kotlin, which, if I'm not mistaken, is predominantly used to program Android apps, along with Java is also used, but Kotlin is another alternative that you can use. So I'm going to go ahead and jump straight in, and I will be right back. All right, so we're back here on Google. Now, when it comes to kind of learning a programming language, like I said, one of our tips is going through programming problems. And one of the great places to do that are on coding interview preparation websites. Now, for those of you who don't know, when you do coding interviews, or when you are practicing for technical coding interviews, they will generally ask you questions like given an array or a list of numbers, for example, find two numbers that add up to a certain sum, and that's called two-number sum, and that's a very easy question. But they'll give you questions like that that challenge you to think in a computer science oriented way with algorithms and data structures. And it is what it is. Some people hate it, some people love it, but it is just how it works. And it's a good way to actually get a fundamental grasp on a programming language. So two of the platforms that I know of are Algo Expert. In fact, I use this to prepare for my coding interviews. It does cost money. It costs, I believe, or I actually don't, can't check, but I think it costs $100 a year. And this platform, fully honestly, I've watched many reviews, is only for people who are studying for coding interviews at big companies, at Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Asana, any big company, Atlassian, Twitch. And if you're not doing that, if you're just a beginner starting out, you absolutely do not need to use this. But I personally use this platform to study because I am eventually studying for those big company interviews. And then another free alternative is called LeetCode, leetcode.com, and then you can just sign up, go to problems, and they have many of the same problems here. The only difference between these two platforms is this platform, Algo Expert, has very, very detailed explanations to how to solve everything. Conceptual, they'll go over. It's very, very high quality. And again, if you are studying for your coding interview, I highly recommend it. And I'm not sponsored at all. I just love the creator of Algo Expert. He's a YouTuber, Clement Milescu. Love his content, and I love his platform. So yeah, I have no problem giving it a shout out. So yeah, you can either use Algo Expert or LeetCode. I'm going to, for example, if I open up LeetCode, like I said, this is a two-number sum. Given an array of integers, return the indices of two numbers such that they add up to a target, which is the same thing I was explaining. You can write your solution in Kotlin, which is the one I will be using today. You can also use any of these programming languages. Same with Algo Expert. If I open up two-number sum here, you can use a smaller variety of programming language, but they both have Kotlin. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So the first step when figuring out a programming language is kind of just opening up the first question. So we will do two-number sum here. And once I'm here, I have no idea what any of this is saying. Well, I kind of do, because this looks similar to Go. This looks somewhat similar to Go as well. Like I can relate these to other programming languages that I already know. But for the most part, this is foreign to me. So I'll just come here and look up Kotlin documentation, get a reference here, and then Kotlin. I'll just look up Kotlin. So there's the docs here. There's a getting started, which since Kotlin is used for, or it is a general purpose, I guess, general purpose programming language. So yeah, if I see here getting started, this is actually how to install Kotlin. So I don't need that. I just want the reference mainly. And then maybe a Kotlin. Yeah, you know what? I can just go off of this, but we can even look up a Kotlin basics. And then, well, that's basic syntax. Tutorials. Tutorials, getting started with Kotlin. Let's see here. So I guess this is, again, part of Kotlin programming questions. Okay, so this is not very useful, but this reference is getting started, basic syntax. So I'll just go ahead and come here to the official, this is the official documentation. Again, I found that by looking up Kotlin docs or documentation, both, and then there's a reference, it's called a reference or documentation, and then you just come here. And then yeah, so let's see, I want to write a function that takes in a non-empty array of distinct integers and an integer representing a target sum. If any of the two numbers add up, then the function should return them. So we're given this array of numbers, we're giving an array or a target of 10, and then we know we want to look through here and then find the two numbers that add up to 10. So great. I'm going to need to write a code that does that. So, I'm going to go ahead and write what's called the brute force solution, which is absolutely not the best solution, but it is always good because it's always good to know, especially in this case, because I don't know much about this programming language. So I'm just going to go with the easiest solution I know. So let's go ahead and search. So what would be the brute force solution for this question? I guess we would have to do a double for loop and check every number against every other number. In other words, I'm checking 3 against, I'm going to check 3 against 5, or 3 against -4, 3, blah, 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 over and over, and then I'm going to check 5 against 3, 5 against -4, and do that. So that's a double for loop. So what I want to find, so I'm taking a look. This is the basic syntax. It looks very similar to other programming languages I know. That's how you do variables. I'm going to keep this one open. I want to look at some loops. Control flow. Yeah, so control flow is, yep, this is where I'm going to find the loops. So let's see here. For loop, this is what I'm looking for. For item in collection, print item. For item int in ints, okay. For I in 1, 2, 3, for I in, okay. For I in array.indices, okay. So we're gonna probably use for I in array.indices, which is, I took it literally straight out of right here, this little piece right here. And then let's go ahead and just test this by, let me make sure this, okay, print ln array at I. So if I run this code and then I check the output, okay, this is incorrect. Did I misspell indices? Indices. Yep, of course I did. Okay, so there we go. That is correct, and then I need a return expression, which for now we'll just return -1. Oh, we need to return a list. Whoops, my bad. So we want to return, let's figure out how to create a list. Let's see here. So again, as just to note here, as I'm going through this problem, I'm running into a bunch of subproblems. For example, I wanted to figure out how to write a for loop. So I came here to control flow, which I know control flow encompasses ifs, whens, or generally if, else if, for, while, all of those kind of programming constructs that allow us to control where the program flows. So I just knew that. And then we are also now looking for a way to construct a list. So I'm now looking for lists. Maybe it'll be under here, maybe not. So if I don't find it, then I can just come here, Kotlin list. Collections overview, there we go. So great, mutable list of, okay, so that seems to be it. It wants us to return a simple list, which, there it is, list of, and then I can do that. So if I return list of, and then I return -1, comma -1, that should let me compile my code, and perfect does, and then it prints out all of our test cases. Perfect. So yeah, this is what we're looking for. Now I know how to loop through every single index in this array. And then what I am also going to do is I'm going to, again, do a double for loop. So for j in array.indices, I keep spelling indices wrong, indices, there we go. Now we're going to check pretty much every number against every other number. So let's go ahead and say, let's figure out how to do a variable. Right here, val a colon int equals 1. Actually, this is very much like Go. So yeah, val current sum colon int is equal to, if I'm not mistaken, yep, is equal to, and then we want to write the sum. So we want to do array I plus array j. And of course, we actually don't want to do this all the time, so we're going to have to check. We only want to add these when the indices are not the same. So, okay, simple. We just say if I is not equal to j, then check, basically. Great. So again, this syntax is fairly familiar. And when I was saying in my previous video talking about what programming language you should learn first, I recommended JavaScript. And for a very good reason. If you learned Python, this syntax probably looks completely foreign to you. Absolutely completely foreign. Of course not 100%, but you know, there's no colons, there's these weird curly brackets, and then there's there's these weird types, which also don't show up in JavaScript, to be fair. But there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't transfer. But from JavaScript, you can understand a good deal. Like a JavaScript programmer can probably just take one look at this and get a kind of a feel for what this is all doing. Just a kind of, yeah, plug to the other video that I made a couple days ago. So yeah, we're going to grab the current sum, and then we're going to check if the current sum is equal to the target sum. Then we want to return list of current sum, target sum, and then let me see. You can assume that there will be at most. Is there anything to return if no two numbers, the function should return an empty array. So yeah, return list of and then nothing. Boom. Okay, and it failed. And let's go ahead and take a look at the test cases, which, quick side note, I'm going to say this again. This is absolutely not a good implementation of two-number sum. And this is just a really bad solution. But this is for the purpose of learning the programming language. Anyone who actually knows what I'm writing here will flame me in the chat. But yeah, this is just, again, as a simple demonstration of learning. And also going through the test cases is generally not a good idea. But if I is not equal to j, right, so let's see here. It found 10 and 10. Why did it find 10 and 10? Equals array I plus array j. That is, yeah, that's not, yeah, array I plus array j. That was a little bug, a typo, pretty much. There we go, so it passed now. And again, so yeah, I've built the solution. I submit this and I get a check mark. And that was basically me going through a simple programming question, which this two-number sum question, again, can be found on LeetCode, which is free. And you can literally just write this out. And look what I did. I just went through the documentation. I saw variables. Okay, this is how you make a variable. And just from my previous programming experience, I already knew, I can relate this to the other programming languages I know. But if you don't, then you can read, take your time through going through all this. You can read all of the surrounding text. I just didn't need to, again. But as a beginner, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't read through all of this. And that's what I did as a beginner. So yeah, that is my personal favorite way of kind of learning a programming language, because normally when you go through a tutorial, like the tutorials I make even, I'm like going through and I'm just on this code editor and you'd have to copy along. And that is not a bad way. You can do that. But of course, after you learn the basics of programming, which for example I teach, then you come here and actually try to solve a problem using those concepts that you've learned in my videos. So yeah, this is kind of like an extension, a more or less what should you do after you learn the basics of a programming language, or you could even do this to learn the basics of a programming language, whichever way you prefer. So yeah, if you want to see more videos like this, or if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. If you do want to see more videos like this one, I kind of post non-tutorial type content every couple of days now, alongside with my regular tutorials, where I talk about anything from web development to now I'm building a kind of a program that it's basically like this. Like you type in a Q and then you type in a word and then you hit space and it replaces it with your snippet. I'm writing that program and teaching you how to code that in JavaScript on one tutorial series. So yeah, I'm making a ton of tutorial type content and non-tutorial type content, and I hope you enjoy all of it. So yeah, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.